Now, progressives keep pointing out that the Democratic establishment would rather work with Republicans than back a progressive in elections, specifically 2020. Now, that's not a surprise to any of us who are actually paying attention to what's going on. I mean, we've seen establishment Democrats try to push progressives out of different local and state races. And Laura Moser's a great example. The DCCC actually launched opposition research. Actually, they did opposition research on a fellow progressive in a primary and then leaked that opposition research. And it wasn't even all that good. Nonetheless, that's what they did. They've meddled in local elections, and we've also seen the DNC back establishment Democrats instead of remain neutral. So those are problematic. But now, even with a surging progressive movement that's been racking up some serious wins in state and local races, Democrats, establishment Democrats, are not going to work with progressives. Instead, they're actually going to work with Republicans in order to stop a progressive challenge. Now, they, of course, say, oh, no, it's not about that. It's not about stopping progressives. It's actually about having a challenge against Donald Trump. Now, Kenneth Vogel of the New York Times explains, Democrats, concerned about Trump's policies and behavior, have taken solace in a group of influential Republicans who have consistently assailed the president as anathema to the values of their party and the country more broadly. In the past year, however, influential liberal donors and operatives have gone from cheering these so-called never-Trump Republicans to quietly working with and even funding them. So here you have supposed liberal funders, liberal donors, funding Republicans. That is insane. But this is what you have. Not only that, but I'm going to get into why, of course, Donald Trump is not anathema to Republican values. But first, let's talk about those Republicans, right? These are the never-Trump Republicans. This is people like Bob Corker and Jeff Flake. So they had the, I guess, audacity, according to Trump, to speak out and say that, oh, Donald Trump, yeah, it turns out he's actually a terrible person. Well, he doesn't share my values. Well, that's very interesting because you look at the voting record of Bob Corker and Jeff Flake. Well, they vote with Trump on the issues, on pretty much all the issues. That's really, really weird. I guess when it comes to voting for things like giant tax cuts for the rich, deregulation, well, they're all over that. Well, they're 100% with Trump's values. Now, Vogel continues. Through invitation-only emails and private off-the-record meetings, they have formed a loose network of cross-partisan alliances aimed at helping neutralize President Trump and preventing others from capitalizing on weaknesses in the political system that they say he has exploited. Now, what does that mean? To me, that means, weaknesses in the system? Weaknesses that progressives are actually coming to exploit. They're coming after progressives who are anti-Trump and anti-corruption and, of course, are against big money in politics. Well, who do these guys represent? Big money in politics that happen to be mad at Donald Trump's tone. Oh, he's so uncivil. Now, they said that while this network has mostly eschewed electoral politics, for now, some involved see the potential for it to help form an ideological and possible financial platform to back candidates, including, and here we have it, a centrist challenge to Mr. Trump in 2020, possibly from within the GOP, or even a third party. Now you can almost guarantee that if Bernie Sanders or a progressive candidate wins the nomination in 2020, and yes, it could happen, there will likely, I think, be a third-party centrist spoiler. I don't think this is surprising to anyone who's listening. I mean, I think it was back in 2016 they were talking about billionaire Michael Bloomberg entering the race if Bernie Sanders won the nomination. To have their centrist, But of course, they're claiming that, no, it's not about Bernie Sanders, it's not about progressives at all. No, it's to stop Donald Trump. We're going to stop Donald Trump with a centrist candidate. I think that they would rather have another Trump win than actually have a progressive. Because even though Trump is so uncouth that they don't like the tone that he makes, they actually love his policy. And they vote for his policy every single time. Now, let me, I want to show you who is involved in this network, right? Now, the network, composed of overlapping groups led by Democrats, such as donor Rachel Pritzker, and several veteran Obama administration officials, as well as leading never-Trump Republicans like Mullen, Mindy Finn, and Bill Kristol, aims to chart a middle path between a Republican base falling in line with Mr. Trump and a liberal resistance trying to pull the Democratic Party left. Now, of course, you have Rachel Pritzker. Now, Rachel Pritzker is related to Clinton mega donor J.B. Pritzker. And she has, of course, funded many different initiatives to try and get bipartisan support on issues like energy and climate. Now, Evan McMullin, of course, is a Republican who were in a short campaign against Donald Trump during the election. Of course, you also have Bill Kristol. Now, Bill Kristol is a classic neoconservative. In fact, Bill Kristol is the guy who still thinks, he's like the one guy who thinks, oh no, the Iraq War, fantastic. In fact, I love the Iraq War. I think we did the absolute right thing. But the Iraq War was a debacle. It was a disaster. It led to ISIS. The country is still kind of unstable. Now, to be fair, they do have democracy back. In fact, their latest election led to al-Baghdadi winning the election. You know what he ran against? He ran against Western intervention. And he won the election. Oops. But to be fair, they do have a somewhat functional democracy. Go team. Mission accomplished. Abu al-Baghdadi, who was the head of the, Mahdi army in Iraq that fought our troops, our soldiers. So now he's an elected official. Way to go. And of course, Bill Kristol looks at that and says, victory. What are you talking about? This was a fantastic idea. And there's your alliance. So you've got these people, giant Clinton mega donors and people with the name McMuffin and all that stuff, getting together to try and do a centrist challenge to Donald Trump in 2020. Wonderful. Look, their main backers actually think tanks, right? So you have these sort of centrist think tanks. In fact, you have the Niskanen Center, right? So this is apparently a so-called moderate think tank that grew out of the Libertarian Cato Institute. Now, the leader of that, Jerry Taylor, said this, quote, "If you're a Republican who is concerned about the health of the liberal order and alarmed over the destruction of the norms of the American democracy, there's no reason you shouldn't be willing to work with a Democrat who is equally concerned about those same matters." Now, of course, that might sound reasonable, right? But here's the problem. Donald Trump is not an aberration. He is the logical extension, the logical evolution of modern Republican politics. Everything led to Donald Trump. This is the logical end, right? And look, I've said this before. Donald Trump is a Fox News president. What is Fox News? Fox News is the extension, is the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. Millions and millions of Republicans tune into Fox News. They get their daily dose of propaganda from that network. And of course, as a result, millions and millions of people think like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, of course, is also influenced by Fox News. He is he is one of their biggest fans, one of their biggest viewers. So that explains why most of the Republican Party loves Donald Trump. He is the Fox News president. He's everything, the embodiment of everything of the Republican Party beliefs, which is insane. But look, also by nature, Republicans are authoritarians. I've said that before. And of course, it's another reason why a lot of them line up behind Donald Trump. Even, look, Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's lined up behind Trump. And some people actually gave him credit for standing up to Trump. Mitt Romney having a backbone, Mitt Romney having a spine. To be fair, there is one Republican that actually is consistent in standing up against Trump, and that's Jeb Bush. Yeah. What is it? This guy.
Please clap.
I mean, come on.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
The guy that actually got kicked out of his own speech at the Rotary Club, it has more of a backbone against Donald Trump than Mitt Romney, than most of these other Republicans. But nonetheless, like I said, they fall behind him, except for people like Jeff Flake, unless it comes to actually voting for the things that Donald Trump espouses. Tax cuts for the rich. How much are your tax cuts worth? Apparently, they're worth selling your soul. But anyway, now, here's the thing, right? Trump's biggest problem, and the problem that I think that they have with Donald Trump, this group, is not that he's destroying democracy. The democracy has kind of been falling apart without him for a while now. No, the problem is that he's doing it in such a way that has upset the people in power. I do declare that Donald Trump is so uncivil to our fellow members of the cocktail circuit that we should work together to do a centrist challenge. And then the centrist is going to keep the status quo going. Where Donald Trump is a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do. But generally, he's been doing really well at doing everything the Republican Party, the Republican establishment, wants him to do. But anyway. Now, you're going to love what they call themselves, this group. They call themselves patriots and pragmatists. Oh, look at me. I'm such a pragmatist. I am against Trump, but not against the conditions that created him. Look at me. Then what are you actually doing? You're doing nothing. But look, I talked about conditions, right? What conditions created Trump? Well, how about stagnant wages? Lack of union representation? Institutional corruption? Money in politics? The fact that 90% of us can believe in a policy, and yet that policy does not get enacted by our representatives, the people that are supposed to represent us. We're the richest country on earth, and we still can't get Medicare for all. We can't get decent health care for our people. Can't do it. Medicare for all is the best way to do it, and that polls at 60%. Still can't do it, right? This is something that all the other industrialized countries possess. But why can't we have it? It's because of these guys. It's because of the radical centrists, right? This is radical centrism. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you're trying to be in the middle of everything, to find the center of every single situation, then you're a radical centrist. For example, when one side has Nazis, people who are literal Nazis, saying, Jew will not replace us, right? And the other side is not Nazis. If you're in the middle of that, you're a radical centrist. And you're saying, hold on, guys, maybe we should let them have their speech. Maybe we should let them talk. They're Nazis. What's the middle ground? Nazis are bad. There is no middle ground. You cannot be in the center of every single issue. At some point, you actually have to take a side. But they don't have a side. Either you believe that people should have health care, or you don't. There is no center on that. And it is very, very simple. You cannot be in the center of everything. And see, that's the problem with centrists. We have a political system right now that is so far slanted to the right that what they call the radical fringe left is actually where Republicans were pretty close to being a couple of decades ago, 30 years ago. We used to have such a strong progressive movement. They used to be in power. Now it has shifted so far to the right. And what do the centrists do? Well, they try to take the center, which is now to the right, massively to the right. Where Bernie Sanders in Europe, for example, would be considered to the center. It's insane. It's insane. But again, centrists, in their quest for centrism, are like, no, we're going to be right here. Right in the middle. And maybe Nazis aren't so bad. At least we should allow them to talk. No, I don't think we should. But anyway, look, people, as far as issues go, man, look, again, centrists think you can compromise on every issue. No. This is not something you can compromise on. Healthcare is not something you can compromise on. That is a life and death issue. People are still literally going bankrupt because they can't afford healthcare. This is a broken-ass system. Broken. There is no middle ground in these issues. And we have to stop thinking that there is. But anyway, look, one more passage here from the article, right? Now, the discussion at Patriots and Pragmatists meetings are intended to focus on big-picture topics related to democracy, rather than elections or political funding. Nonetheless, some see this coalition as having the potential to bring the same kind of financial firepower to an anti-Trump centrist movement as the Democracy Alliance has brought to the left. Now, the reason that I highlighted that is actually because I thought this was interesting. Now, they talk about democracy, right? Well, recently a study came out about centrists in both America and Europe actually being the most skeptical of democracy and more willing to help an authoritarian gain power if it leads to certain stability. Now, of course, the authoritarian isn't a right-wing authoritarian. No, but if it's a centrist authoritarian, a technocrat, well, then that's different, right? Then we should allow him to bypass the messiness of legislatures and the messiness of electoral politics and just do whatever. All right, well, that's very sad. In fact, let me give you a quote from that. Survey conducted by researcher David Adler found evidence of a substantial support for a strong leader who ignores the country's legislature, particularly among centrists. In the United States, centrist support for a strongman-type leader actually far surpasses that of both the right and the left. Now, he also found that centrists prefer a strong and efficient government over messy democratic politics. And finally, they note that middle-class moderates are the ones that have encouraged authoritarian transitions in order to bring stability and deliver growth. So centrists help authoritarians, which is why I think these Democrats can easily work with authoritarians and Republicans against the left. They would rather work with or lose to Republicans than back a progressive. And all of this, of course, comes amid speculation of a second Bernie Sanders run. Look, we've got these centrists working together with the Republicans, these Democrats. We have these hit pieces that are against progressives and Bernie Sanders and our revolution. And so this is not an accident. This is not a coincidence, right? Look, Sanders would have beaten Trump by a landslide. We know this, right? Instead, what we had is establishment Democrats nominating Hillary Clinton, who, guess what, targeted middle-class suburban Republican voters and ended up losing to a monster. They would rather lose to a Republican, even a monster like Trump, than let a progressive win, because progressives actually will offer change. They actually will offer what I guess some would consider radical change. However, in reality, that radical change is actually the most pragmatic. Now, and of course, these so-called pragmatists on the center are willing to do this all over again. Make no mistake, radical centrism, as espoused by these groups, is actually the most dangerous thing in America and will lead to a second term for Donald Trump. Mark my words. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.